Something inside the House of Windsor appears to have fractured beyond repair, and the first public sign was not a speech, not a warning, but a sudden, irreversible decision that sent shockwaves through royal watchers overnight. According to Western media reports, Buckingham Palace moved with unusual speed after what insiders claim were deeply troubling findings linked to Prince Harry's life in California. And before we unpack how it reached this point, take a moment to subscribe and tap like if you follow royal affairs closely, because stories like this tend to evolve quickly, and the next detail is often the one that changes everything. It is reported that in the early hours of a February morning, palace officials confirmed King Charles had authorized the complete removal of Prince Harry's remaining royal titles and ceremonial privileges. Not a partial suspension, not a temporary pause. According to sources familiar with the matter, this was described internally as a final institutional separation. What makes this moment so unsettling is not just the outcome, but the chain of events that allegedly triggered it. Unconfirmed information suggests that American authorities executed a sealed legal action at the Sussex residence in California, recovering digital material and financial records now under federal review. While officials on both sides of the Atlantic have avoided public detail, insiders claim the palace was briefed on the situation weeks earlier through allied channels. According to sources, the concern was not a single issue, but a pattern. Allegedly, investigators began examining financial flows connected to charitable structures, private media ventures, and third-party contractors operating across multiple jurisdictions. None of these claims have been proven in court, but it is reported that the volume of unanswered questions alone raised alarms inside royal legal offices. What followed, insiders claim, was an emergency process rarely used in the modern monarchy. Palace advisors reportedly reviewed historical protocols designed for moments when reputational risk becomes systemic. According to Western media reports, this review concluded that distance, not silence, was now the safer option. A palace spokesperson later confirmed that King Charles had signed a formal directive revoking Prince Harry's remaining royal titles, honorary military appointments, and all remaining public affiliations tied to the crown. The wording, according to those who saw it, emphasized breaches of trust and institutional protection rather than personal grievance. This distinction matters. Insiders claim the decision was framed not as punishment, but as containment. Behind the scenes, sources suggest senior royals were consulted before the order was finalized. Princess Anne, known for her uncompromising view of duty, is reported to have supported a firm response, allegedly warning that hesitation could invite deeper scrutiny later. Prince William, according to palace insiders, endorsed the decision on the grounds that credibility once lost is rarely recovered. What makes this episode different from previous royal controversies is how openly it unfolded. Rather than quietly adjusting titles or responsibilities, the palace allowed the change to be visible almost immediately. The official royal website was updated, court listings were amended, references to the Duke of Sussex were removed without ceremony. According to insiders, that visibility was deliberate. Meanwhile, questions continue to swirl around what exactly American authorities are reviewing. Western media reports indicate that investigators are assessing potential discrepancies involving financial disclosures, data handling practices, and commercial use of royal branding. Allegedly, some agreements referenced royal status in ways that may not have been authorized under existing accords. Again, these remain allegations. No charges have been announced, no verdict has been reached, but according to sources, the palace concluded that waiting for legal outcomes could leave the institution exposed in the meantime. Meghan Markle has not commented publicly, and palace officials have avoided naming her directly in statements. However, unconfirmed information suggests that her business entities are included in at least some of the material under review by U.S. agencies. Insiders claim further disclosures are possible, depending on how the investigation progresses. Adding another layer of tension, it is reported that members of the extended royal household were asked to submit past correspondence for review, a step rarely taken unless broader implications are feared. Queen Camilla has remained publicly silent, though sources suggest she is privately distressed by the situation and by speculation involving members of her own family. As the story developed, British and American media noted a coordinated tone between palace communications and U.S. legal briefings. According to Western media reports, this alignment is unusual and suggests a high level of cross-border cooperation, even if the full scope remains classified. Perhaps the most striking moment came when a senior palace insider told a broadcaster that this was not a family dispute, but a firewall. Those words have since been echoed across commentary panels, underscoring the perception that the monarchy believes it faced a genuine institutional threat. Public reaction has been swift and polarized. Some see it as overdue accountability. Others view it as a tragic collapse of reconciliation. Polling cited by Western media reports indicates strong domestic support for King Charles's decision, particularly among older audiences who prioritize stability and tradition over personal narrative. And yet, for all the declarations of finality, the story does not feel finished. According to sources, multiple reviews are still ongoing, including assessments by tax authorities and regulatory bodies in the United States. Insiders claim that former associates have been contacted and that additional testimony may emerge. Whether any of this results in formal charges remains unclear. What is clear, however, is that the line has been drawn.
By stripping titles in full view of the public, King Charles appears to have signaled that no individual, regardless of birth, stands above institutional survival. Allegedly, internal documents described this as a necessary evolution toward what advisors call a defensive transparency model of monarchy. As one royal commentator put it, the crown has chosen certainty over sentiment. And as the dust settles, one question lingers in the background, unanswered and unsettling. If this was the palace's response to what has already surfaced, what happens if more comes to light? Because according to insiders, the most damaging details are rarely the first ones revealed. According to sources familiar with internal discussions, the next phase began quietly, without cameras or announcements. Behind palace walls, legal advisors reportedly shifted from damage control to long-term containment, preparing for scenarios that extend far beyond headlines. Unconfirmed information suggests that British authorities were notified shortly after their American counterparts identified material they considered sensitive, not merely embarrassing. Insiders claim this included digital correspondence, metadata, and financial pathways that raised questions about oversight rather than intent. And that distinction, according to palace thinking, made all the difference. Western media reports indicate that a closed briefing was held with senior security and constitutional advisors, where the core concern was framed bluntly: the monarchy could not afford prolonged ambiguity. Allegedly, advisors warned that even passive association with an unresolved investigation could erode public confidence faster than any single revelation. This is where the tone reportedly hardened. According to insiders, the palace revisited agreements established after Prince Harry stepped back from royal duties, including limitations on branding, patronage references, and access to institutional resources. What they found, allegedly, was a gray zone, not outright violations, but repeated boundary pressure that taken together created risk. Sources claim that some commercial arrangements appeared to blur personal enterprise with royal proximity, especially in international contexts where the distinction carries legal and financial weight. Again, no wrongdoing has been proven, but it is reported that advisors judged the cumulative effect as unsustainable. As this assessment unfolded, senior royals began closing ranks. Princess Anne, according to Western media reports, advocated for what she reportedly called institutional clarity. Prince William, insiders claim, focused on precedent, arguing that inconsistency today would weaken authority tomorrow. What followed was not dramatic but methodical. It is reported that internal directories were amended, access protocols reviewed, and ceremonial references withdrawn across departments. According to sources, this was done to ensure that no ambiguity remained about representation, even at symbolic levels. At the same time, American agencies continued their work independently. Insiders claim investigators are examining whether financial disclosures matched activity across state and federal thresholds. Allegedly, some transfers and agreements drew attention not for size but for structure. Again, these are reviews, not conclusions. Yet the ripple effects were immediate. Western media reports say several media and publishing partners quietly paused negotiations tied to Sussex projects, citing uncertainty. According to insiders, this pause was anticipated and factored into palace risk models. Public silence from Prince Harry has only intensified speculation. Some interpret it as legal caution, others see it as shock. Sources close to California-based circles suggest the situation is being treated with extreme seriousness, with advisors limiting public exposure.
Meanwhile, within Britain, the narrative has shifted. Commentators increasingly frame the episode not as exile, but as insulation. According to Western media reports, the phrase institution before individual has resurfaced repeatedly in analysis, echoing older moments of royal self-preservation. There is also the question of legacy. Insiders claim King Charles views this moment as defining, not just for his reign, but for the future structure of the monarchy. Allegedly, advisors have encouraged a more transparent posture going forward, one that prioritizes preemptive clarity over quiet accommodation. Still, unease remains. According to sources, additional findings could emerge, particularly as regulatory reviews progress in the United States. Even if no charges are filed, insiders warn that disclosures alone can reshape perception, and perception, in royal terms, is power. For now, the palace line is firm and measured. No speculation, no escalation, just distance. But history suggests that when institutions move this decisively, they do so because the alternative feels far riskier. And as Western media continues to monitor developments on both sides of the Atlantic, one reality has settled in. Whatever happens next, the relationship between Prince Harry and the Crown has crossed a point of no return. According to insiders, the story is no longer about reconciliation. It is about what the monarchy is prepared to sacrifice to protect itself and how much truth the public is about to see. According to sources, the final stage of this process was shaped not by emotion, but by precedent. Palace historians and constitutional advisors were reportedly consulted to assess how similar crises were handled in the past, and the conclusion, insiders claim, was sobering. Whenever ambiguity lingered, the institution paid for it later. Unconfirmed information suggests that King Charles was presented with multiple response models, ranging from limited symbolic distancing to full procedural severance. According to insiders, he chose the most definitive option after being warned that partial measures could unravel under sustained scrutiny. What followed was described internally as a clean break strategy. Western media reports indicate that this strategy extended beyond titles. It allegedly included a review of how royal identity is referenced in commercial contexts, how informal access is granted, and how future disputes would be handled if new material surfaced. One senior royal watcher noted that this approach signals a shift from reactive monarchy to preventative monarchy. According to sources, that shift has been in discussion for years, but this moment forced its implementation. Behind the scenes, staff reportedly worked through the night, updating registries, archives, and advisory notices. The speed of execution, insiders claim, was meant to eliminate speculation that the decision might be reversed. And then came the silence. No interviews, no emotional statements, just a clear institutional posture that allowed others to fill the vacuum. Analysts across Britain and the United States interpreted the quiet as deliberate restraint, not avoidance. Meanwhile, attention has turned to what happens next legally. According to Western media reports, American regulators are continuing their assessments independently of royal decisions. Allegedly, investigators are focused on compliance, disclosure, and governance, not personal narrative. This distinction is critical because even a finding of administrative fault could have far-reaching implications for how royal-adjacent ventures operate abroad. Sources suggest that former associates may be asked to clarify roles, timelines, and oversight structures. Insiders emphasize that cooperation levels, not just findings, will influence outcomes. Back in London, the mood is described as resolute but heavy. According to insiders, senior members of the family are acutely aware of the emotional cost, even as they defend the necessity. Princess Catherine and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, are reportedly involved in discussions about safeguarding institutional memory and preventing future conflicts between duty and commerce. Public reaction continues to evolve. While many support the firmness of the response, others express unease at the finality. Western media reports show a growing debate over whether transparency strengthens the monarchy or exposes it to constant judgment. Yet advisors appear to have made their choice. According to sources, the palace believes that credibility in the modern era is built through visible standards, not quiet exceptions. And in that framework, distance becomes a form of honesty. As for Prince Harry, insiders say his path forward will likely be shaped by legal counsel rather than royal history. Whether he responds publicly and when remains uncertain. Those close to the situation suggest any statement will be carefully calibrated, if it comes at all. One thing, however, is already clear. This chapter has altered the unwritten rules of royal life. Titles, once seen as immutable, have proven conditional. Access, once assumed, has become earned. And silence, once protective, has given way to structure. According to insiders, the monarchy has drawn a boundary not just for one individual, but for the future. Because in an age of constant exposure and global scrutiny, the crown has decided that survival depends not just on tradition alone, but on the willingness to act before hesitation becomes collapse. And as this story continues to unfold, viewers are left with a final unsettling thought. If this is how the monarchy responds when it believes the risk is existential, what other safeguards are already in place, waiting for the moment they are needed?
According to sources, that question is already being discussed quietly inside royal advisory circles. Insiders claim that what happened here has triggered a wider internal audit, not focused on individuals, but on systems that allowed blurred lines to exist in the first place. Unconfirmed information suggests that several long-standing protocols around data access, charitable governance, and third-party partnerships
are now under review. These rules were written for a slower, more discreet era, and according to Western media reports, advisors believe they no longer offer sufficient protection in a digital, global marketplace. This is where the story broadens beyond one name. According to insiders, the palace has begun mapping scenarios involving future generations, particularly how royal identity is used, licensed, and protected once members step outside formal duties. Allegedly, new guidelines could sharply limit commercial references to royal status, even for those born into the family. Some see this as overdue modernization, others view it as a quiet tightening of control. What cannot be ignored is the emotional undertow. Sources close to palace staff describe an atmosphere that is disciplined but subdued. There is no sense of victory, only the gravity of a line crossed and consequences accepted. Western media reports indicate that King Charles has held multiple private consultations with senior clergy and constitutional experts, reinforcing the idea that this decision was weighed not only legally, but morally. Insiders claim he views the episode as a test of stewardship, not authority. Meanwhile, international attention remains intense. According to sources, foreign governments and institutions that interact with the monarchy have been briefed to avoid confusion over representation. This step, rarely taken so explicitly, underscores how seriously the palace is treating reputational clarity. In California, the silence continues. Unconfirmed information suggests that Prince Harry's legal team is focused on cooperation and containment rather than confrontation. Insiders caution against interpreting this as admission of guilt. In high-profile reviews, silence is often strategy. Still, the absence of narrative allows speculation to flourish. Western media reports show growing scrutiny of how celebrity, philanthropy, and influence intersect, particularly when legacy institutions are involved. Analysts suggest this case may become a reference point for future regulatory standards, regardless of outcome. And that may be the most lasting impact of all. According to insiders, the palace is preparing for the possibility that no single revelation will close this chapter cleanly. Instead, the story may unfold in fragments, reports, and footnotes over time. That reality has shaped the crown's posture, firm now, flexible later. As one observer noted, institutions do not fear scandal as much as uncertainty. For the monarchy, this was the moment uncertainty became unacceptable. So while investigations continue and opinions divide, the message from Buckingham Palace appears unmistakable. The era of informal tolerance is over. Association without accountability is no longer an option. And whether this decision is remembered as harsh or necessary may depend on what comes next, because according to sources, history rarely judges the first move. It judges what it prevented.